Hey there, it's Chloe, co-director of the La Chiara Method and your podcast co-host. We've created something really special for you. A free 8-day mini course designed to transform your life in 3 minutes a day or less. Each day, you'll receive an aha-provoking question and bite-sized meditation that helps to unearth unconscious beliefs and connect you to your divine essence. Tired of swirling in the chaos? Head to lachiaramethod.com/podcast-gift or find that link in the show notes. Here's to your healing and a clearer, happier you. Welcome to the Activate Change podcast, where transformation is just a conversation away. Each episode offers an intimate front row seat to an authentic and unscripted personal healing session with renowned healer and creator of the La Chiara Method, Gabrielli La Chiara. Our incredibly generous and courageous guests explore their genuine struggles, longings, and deepest desires in these sessions, and we, as listeners, have the honor and privilege to witness their sacred and profound healing journeys. As you listen, we invite you to receive as well, feeling into where the healing and insights that transpire might spark transformation in your own life. And stay tuned until the end because I, Chloë Faith Urban, will discuss the session and share a skill or framework that Gabrielli used, which you can apply to your own personal healing. This podcast does contain adult language and content, so if you have little ones around you, you may want to use headphones. In this episode, Gabrielli has a session with Kellie, an entrepreneur who's longing to have more ease with getting her amazing work out in the world. Listen as she explores her lineage of staying hidden, her struggle with motivation, and her ongoing and profound rebirthing process. Kellie has experience with the work, mostly through sessions with me, Chloe, and a couple with Gabrielli in the past. Let's dive in. Hello.
Hello, Gabrielli.
Hi, Kellie. We are here for your podcast session, and I'm going to start just by reminding us that that's true, and it's still your session. It's not for anyone else but you, and so let's invoke that the time we spend together in this session is for your own healing, your own aware building, your own connection to you, and that any and all energies that come up and any information that passes through that to remind you that this delete button lives full time between us. And that I'm not at all attached.
Yes.
You know, like sometimes later, right? You're like, that resonated, but it led me to a new awareness. And please don't be loyal to me in your growth.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Feels important. And it also just gives me permission to be bold. So
yes, please do.
Yeah. So let's clear anything not required or generative so that we can show up for you today, and invoking that you are here intentionally to show up for your own process and to be present on this journey with me and activate change and generate healing immediately. Yeah. I'm so curious what your intentions are and how I might be helpful today.
Yeah. Well, me too. I was excited actually that all of this showed up at this time. I'm in an interesting place in my career and feel like I've got some baggage, perhaps cultural or otherwise, around just like, I have a story a little bit about like, oh, I'm not like, why do I lose my motivation? And I'm like, this is not, I feel so clear that it's not really motivation that I lack. But somehow that's like the category it gets thrown into, because I come into these phases around my work that just feel like I'm not that interested in doing all the parts and pieces. As an entrepreneur, I feel like I am really good at some things and really not good at other things. And I'm so tired of trying to do all the things to make a business work. And I can just be super critical and sort of down on my, again, like this idea of not being motivated to do the hard things. But part of me is also, there's a knowing that, but I don't exactly know what the knowing is of like, oh, this is, I don't want to just take on the responsibility that like, that I'm just not, that I'm not motivated or that I don't want to do the work that I want to do. Cause I don't think that that's really what's here. I think that there's something else that's sort of interrupting a flow for me. And and that's the part that I'm hoping to just sort of give some time and love and attention to in this time with you, because I get tired of myself around how I sort of identify or define myself as a professional being, because I feel very good at what I do, and simultaneously, like sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to work. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. It doesn't really feel like work when I do it. So what's the other thing that's actually like getting, what's disrupting this flow, basically. I would say that's how I would narrow it down to a question. What is disrupting this flow that I know I can and have had around myself professionally, but it gets disrupted regularly, seasonally. Like I just feel like somehow I'm always, some part of me is always in the way. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. I, as an entrepreneur, I really understand the complexity of doing what you love and then having to do all kinds of things to be able to do what you love. And the multiple faces of your job is what I heard you talking about. And like where you could lay it on yourself as being unmotivated or, and I also hear you saying you want to unpack. Maybe that's not maybe that linear description isn't actually all of what's here in who you are around working. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like that. And I feel hungry for a reframe. I feel emotional about, the effort that I feel like I have put in. And then like for all the effort I feel like I have put in, I'm not always sure that I see that reflected in, how many clients I have or how much money I'm making. And it just feels like there's something that's not aligned here or not, I don't know. I don't have the word, but like for all the work I feel like I've put in to be a sex educator and support people around their sexuality and to and this kind of space I hold for people, it's like it's a mismatch for like the amount of training and the amount of practice I've had in conjunction with like what my business actually looks like right now. Just feels like no, this is not a match. This is not a match. So yeah. So
right, you said not an alignment, but it sounds like you're talking about not lining up.
Yeah.
Somehow does it feel right, which is maybe the same thing, but a little different way of saying it. And I love the value, and place on your work and who you are. And the question of like, okay, well, wait a minute, why therefore isn't this more abundant on all the levels or more?
Yes.
Yeah. Abundant is the word I hear.
Yeah. And
thriving is the word I hear.
Yes. And it feels, it just feels so silly in some ways. And I'm like, oh my God, for what I do, the uniqueness of what I do and the uniqueness of who I am and what I bring to people, like there's no reason for me not to just feel really confident about the amount of people that I'm seeing, how much time I'm doing, like it just isn't, there's something's up.
Yep. Yeah. Well, let's dive in and see what we find out. I'm hearing the at one point I remember seeing this vision in the work I was doing, and it was like this glass wall. And I remember hearing, sort of channeling through this message at how we like put in these glass walls sometimes to stop ourselves so that we don't go out of control. And those glass walls are like you can't just run through them. They're not little glass. They're thick. And you can bang into them or try to climb them and you don't get over them. And that those glass wall junctures are really important points to be able to pivot and step back and ask, what have I decided is unsafe? What maybe is safe now? What do I need to do to move with? And this incredible vision I got of like turning sideways, walking next to the wall while looking in it until at some point there was no more wall. It's like, oh, wow, it's gone. There it is. And so it makes me wonder if you're at one of those pivot points where and maybe it's gone on a long time, but where there is this metaphoric glass wall, like something that you unconsciously decided is the stop point for your safety, and that it's time to peer in from all the directions and ask, is there any reason why it would be, blocking you from being able to really receive the next level of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got an instant teary feeling of like, oh, wait, this is about you. Your work is not about anyone else. As much as you serve others, it's about you, Kellie, coming into the potency and visibility of who you are and being seen by more people for your gifts, for your you-ness, for the magnificent potency of the being that you are. It's like all of a sudden I just felt like, wait, right. This is you being you with full permission to be seen.
Yeah. That feels good. Just having you say that out loud. I'm like, oh, yes.
Right. Well, your work is not someone else. Your work is your work.
Yeah.
Your work isn't just a book that you read, or yes, you have training, but it's your own capacity to come alive in people's worlds and to meet the energy of sexuality in whatever ways you do, sensuality, aliveness, freedom, exploration, boundaries, everything that might come in there. So maybe we start in a discovery process related to being you.
Yeah.
And your full expanded gifts. Can we go there?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay. So I would say let me go somewhere else first. Well, let's first clear any and all of the energies of saboteur that might block us from actually seeing between the lines here, to see who, what, where, when, why you need. What is the energy you need in order to expand through, beyond, and past any limitations that are placed upon you, or that you've placed upon yourself, or that aren't even really there, but we might think are there, and all of the energies towards change that you're ready for in becoming even a more potent contribution to Earth and yourself, and activate change and generate healing immediately. Yeah. So what came up for you? I felt that shiver through my body.
Yeah. I mean, it was sensorial more than anything. It just felt like a feeling of emotionality, sadness, grief, sort of moving up through my center line. And then as I exhaled through the activation, I just really felt myself like with the planet, like just grounded using the grief somehow.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. That's
Beautiful.
What came through.
Good. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I like the who, what, where, when, why, knowing that you don't need to get stuck on any one of those words, but just in a global sense, like it could be anything, right? Like who, what, where, when, why decided that you are not, Kellie, allowed to be liberated.
I'm laughing because I'm like, it just feels like so many beings. So many beings, whether that I could say with immediacy, like, well, all the women that I come from, the matrilineal line of women who are just like, you gotta just keep going and be with the wall.
Right. Stay hidden. I hear stay hidden, like stay behind the fucking wall. That's like too scary. Don't come out.
Totally. The hiding is just so, feels, it just feels so present.
There's so much loyalty that I feel in what you're saying. It's like so much loyalty to hiding. So in honor to the ancestors and the matrilineage and all the beings that you could feel and sense and more, what are you hiding even to yourself about who and how you truly can exist as a healer, a helper, a conduit on earth?
What am I hiding from myself?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's the first thing that sort of comes to my mind is like, there's a very, very, very big expressive energy in me that is tremendous and beyond something that I'm even comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and does that immense feeling of self, because it's so big, do you think it's hitting like the, I know for me early on, I always hit the either or. It's like, I felt like if I finally let go into the rest of who I was becoming, that it would go too fast. It would be too big. I would be out of control. Like, is there some indoctrination, internal or idea that if you surrender, that you're going to completely lose control or be unsafe being you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as you say that, I'm like, the feeling doesn't feel like a clear yes. It feels more like, no, I've gone there. I feel like I know, I feel like it's, yes, there's this line, there's this story of I do feel loyal to somehow, I don't understand, but like a loyalness to staying hidden. When you say that, I'm like, oh no. So there's like a resonance there that doesn't feel good, but feels true. But then the piece about feeling like scared of being completely out of control doesn't really feel true either.
Good.
It feels more like, no, I have tapped and seen and been with this bigness of my energy, my whatever, what I have to say and feel into this planet and world that I live in. And that it feels like it's been tapped. It just, I don't live from that space, nor do I feel like I need to live from that space. But there's something there that feels, I think that, the piece around hiding feels more, anyway, it just feels like it has resonance.
Right, which makes sense because this part, you always say, what are you hiding? So let me ask it this way.
Yeah.
Let me first just invoke, because I think you would really know this, but I'll say it anyway, because our brains sometimes need to hear it, which is like, whatever we uncover, it's not like you then are loyal to something new. We're just asking the questions so that we can see, so that you can then negotiate, talk to, play with those parts that maybe have been hidden. Not because, again, it's like, oh, we flip a switch. Once we know this thing, we can never turn back, so no entrapment. Right. So clearing all that and activate change and generate healing immediately. So who, what, where, when, why of you have you been hiding even from yourself? That if you were to receive it, you would create even more steady, healthy, vital abundance in your work in the world. It's been hiding even from yourself.
It's pretty well hidden because nothing's showing up.
Good. That's perfect. That's how we know we got somewhere.
Yeah.
That empty space right before you have a new awareness is perfect.
Yeah.
So let's take a second and release some injury recalls and see if we can feel how we would come around this, how do we want to approach this feeling? And I'm just going to invite you to stay there and what has been hidden, that if it was safe to receive today, I could actually receive it. And it wouldn't mean I'm stuck there. It just means I would know something that I need to know. And calling in the support of the ancestors, my first question is just to ponder, do those women need you to be loyal anymore in the ways that you have been?
No.
Around your work? Good.
No.
Okay, so we can know that. Because I really feel that. I just felt like them coming through with like, well, wait a minute. If we've put you in a box, you don't need to be there for us. We don't live on this earth.
No, they definitely, that feels, I don't even know how to describe how that feels, because it doesn't necessarily feel present. I feel so much like the end of the line in my family, not having my own children. There's this sort of feeling of like, oh no, we knew you, Missy. you would help liberate all of us somehow, just by being you.
And then simultaneously, I'm like, okay, well, let's also not do their work any more than you are really designed to do for yourself. Yes. So let's clear both sides of it anyway, in which there would be like lingering loyalty not required, because it's like obsolete at this point. You've gone past that. And any ways in which there would be some idea that you would be taking on the kit and caboodle of everybody else's shit, and then have to do all the things they never did too, because that would be kind of a lot.
So much.
Any way in which we can know that you're going to pass your lineage now, not through genetics, but through spirit. And are you willing to be a transmuter to bring the spiritual possibilities and gifts, even through the ancestral code, through you, those that are designed to be you, into this world, and transmute them and gift them for the future?
Yes.
And activate change and generate healing immediately. Wow. Well, that's super shivery. Who's hiding in you that you're now ready to receive? Who being any part of your identity, your you-ness, your spirit forces, your lifetimes before or in the future. Who is hiding in you that you potentially in this moment are ready to receive, or at least know?
The two things immediately came in. One was just God, and the other one was like the gentle spirit of who I really am. And as someone who's just pursued spending more time with my singing voice and singing and being in sort of my musicianship, I'm like, oh, she is so, like, I'm in the practice of receiving her, but like, she's so new and so wanted to be here for a long time, and has been, but like always in the background, always sort of hiding. So like to have her be named in the space of like the part of me that is a muse and singing and making and creating is like, that is the part that wants to keep like, hey, before you like bring in these other, like, don't override that I've been coming out. I've been in the coming out process, and like, I don't want to ignore her at all. Yeah. And I don't want to keep her hidden either. So those are the two things that.
And I'm hearing like, what is she waiting for? Like, she's been waiting, and yes, you're starting this relationship, but there's like this idea that, I don't know, maybe there's an idea that comes after you accomplish all the other parts of yourself or something, like as if it lost the grandness of being equitable and required in order for you to use your left brain and function and create business or hire the right people or have enough money or whatever it is, right? Yeah, like I think you need that part of yourself. I'm getting kind of the deep sense that is where you can resource the other parts that are needing help. Whether it's creatively to bring in new structures or new people or different ways of doing it, or whether it's to, play in the mystic ability to like start thinking out of the box of what business could be for you and how else business could be run and what it means to expand, and like all of that, the way that part of you is also collective and part of community and part of a bigger wholeness and not just an individual driving a business forward. Something about all those parts of you feel important here.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And doing the business in isolation, even if you have help, it feels like there's some part of this that maybe gets stumped when you, it's not like you don't want to be responsible, so I don't want to put that word down, but it's as if it's like, if I feel it, I feel this like I have to take these, 50 steps. And if I don't do them in this order, then I don't get to be me because I didn't do it right. And I can't have clients. And that's everything I live for. And, part of everything I live for. And there's something about the
word responsibility feels significant in that way, the way you just described, because I tend to think of responsibility as being a linear, like, oh, this is exactly what you just said. Okay, here are the next 50 steps I need to take just so that I can like move forward and thrive. And I'm like, well, I'm already not thriving with that mentality. So now I'm just going to sit in my own, like, I'm just going to dwell in what I don't want to do. And then feel like all of a sudden I'm someone who doesn't want responsibility. But truthfully, what I feel like is what happens when I am responsible is there's so much pressure to be too many things, to fill in too many spaces. And that feels like where my hand goes up and I'm like, I can't do that. Like I don't want to do it that way. And
the isolation in that, I just feel so much isolation, and it goes to me against everything that may actually be what you're living for, which is this connectivity and connective tissue of life and openness and the sponginess and the suppleness, of connection. And so, that feels like an important injury to look at in terms of the trauma of being so isolated and responsible in these particular functions to the degree where they are now hard to do and are in the way of you being able to express your gifts, right?
Yes. Yeah, I have like a lot of energy just thinking about moving through this injury or this obstacle. Is like, please, I want to work through this because I want something else, and I want that. Just like you said, that connectivity is so much what I long for, what I create in my life so well. And yet professionally, it just feels like, it just gets so jumbled. I just start to get all wrapped up in like my identity and how much my identity is my work. And I don't want my identity to be my work. And like all this like seesaw mindset. And I just feel, I also like, I feel embarrassed by it. Yeah.
I was just, my heart was just feeling, so much love. Like I was feeling like, wow, whatever you have done so far to be you and to get your gifts into the world and to train yourself so that you could be trained well enough to be free to be creating more different things that are not all those trainings, right? Like all the creative force and juice you've put into becoming you and to do what you do. And that you've also put this structure in that you've had to force yourself into because it's not necessarily kindred to the way you function. But holy shit, you've done so much on behalf of your mission and on behalf of healing others. And I don't want to miss like how hard that must have already been. And I feel the point of impasse. It feels healthy. I feel the part that's saying, oh no, I don't want to just do more of this to have more of that. Like there's something that feels appropriate to say, not that you're not going to be responsible, but there's got to be another way to be responsible, another way to show up and build out this business that I'm not seeing and or that could mean that other people are involved differently or this collective force behind it. And that part of me gets like really enlivened with like, what the fuck is it going to take, Kellie, for you to just shift all of that and get off the grid enough to say what else is possible that your own soul already knows because this isn't the only way. Otherwise you'd be doing it.
Right.
You've got to know somewhere in there that something else is possible. Cause I don't think it's about just quitting your life work. There's like some part of you gets heavy in the grief that it's not here yet, but that again, to me, that means it's in there.
Yeah. Yes to just everything you're saying. Thank you.
Great. Can we clear the grids, constructs, structures, forms, beliefs, and systems of society and those around us and ourselves that say, like, there's only one way to do this, or maybe there's 5, but all 5 of them suck. And therefore, if I don't do it that way, or maybe there's 20, but I only know the 20 that suck. And so if I don't get my fucking act together, I'm not going to be able to do anything that I really want to do here. And so I might as well just give up, because why even try? Because that's just too hard. So that there's trauma in there for you. There's trauma in the force that as a human, you've had to force yourself into a box that is so not, it's not easy for you, I would say, to say the least.
Yeah. Thank you. I do want to clear those constructs, because I want to find another way. And I know there is one. I just don't get it.
I'm going to say it again in the piece of being somewhat redundant, but I don't think you would be this upset if you didn't know that, because I feel like you're talking about a mission that is so soul driven in your work and so purposeful that I think it would override, if this was the only way to do it, I think it would override the hiccup and just get it done. There's something about needing to have your soul mission, even in the background work, that it's like they're 2 separate things. You're just doing this X, Y, and Z over here to make this thing happen, versus like, how can it all be part of that same creative force of you? Can it be? And at least to explore it, because if it can't and you fall on your face, then we figure out what's next. Like I could be wrong, right? Maybe one day you look back in a year or 2 years or 3 and you say, well, I didn't find another way and this is the only way to do it. So then we ask, okay, how to do that differently then? Like, is that just manifesting enough means to be able to hire people? What is it? It doesn't feel like that's just the answer. Like, oh, hire people and be done.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It feel and it also feels something. It feels more connected to my soul than it does to even the logistics. It's like,
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. So let's go there. Let's go and feel. Let's have you take 3 or 4 long exhales into the soul, body, being communion of you in relation to this hard spot that we're talking about, this stuck place in work. And let's just hear if we can feel and hear your own soul speak. What does that soul in you, what does that being in you know for this body that you need to know in order to be able to step through, past, beyond, melt the glass wall into the beingness of your becoming? So truth, what does your soul and being want your body to know today? In particular about working. Right there, if you don't mind, just taking your breath a little under wherever you are, because I feel like there's this energy, a touch underneath where your consciousness is going.
Yeah.
Let me just clear to get us there a little bit more. So let me clear anything that would block us from seeing, perceiving, and knowing what you need to know today in order to take the next steps in becoming even more of you, and thriving and showing up and unsticking and unplugging. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And right there, even a little bit more, Kelly, as if you could go just behind where you are. So you could take your mind's eye and bring it just a touch back and down, right there. Ooh, what's that? I guess I want to ask, this lifetime or another?
Yeah. I don't see clearly yet. Or I should say that I just feel very like down and in at the moment. So I don't know what there is to see here other than everything.
Stay there. My perception is like contract or vow. It feels ancient, archaic almost. It's deep, like I promised is the words I hear. I promised I would never something. And those are just the words I'm putting on it, but find your own. See if you can see if it is there. Take that mind's eye in. Long exhales will help. Activate, change, generate healing immediately. Invoking any and all information safe to receive that will help guide you in being even safer physically on this planet, being you. It's not just for radical abundance, it's for radical abundance that is vitality, safeness, health, expression, and contribution. Activate, change, and generate healing immediately. Good.
Well, I don't hear promise. I hear I owe, but it's sort of like, it's pausing there. It's just like, I owe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's cool about that is that it's also just vowel sounds, which to me right now, as I like say, I owe, like it just becomes sort of a mantra, but it doesn't feel loaded with whatever the word the word means.
Great. That's usually indicative of something you've already unpacked in your healing work and is now just untethering. Like we're uprooting a rootstock not required, So I love that. Like, let's maybe do until it makes its own sound.
Yeah.
Go ahead and make those sounds play.
I owe. I owe. I owe.
Activate, change, and generate healing immediately.
I owe. I mean, it's starting to feel good down here.
Good.
Yeah, my body is rocking back and forth. I'm sitting cross-legged and like my pelvic floor feels really open. So there's this like the I-O actually feels like both feels like an I am, and it also feels like an I will. It also feels like I did. I already I have.
And I'm hearing, what do you owe yourself now? What experience of you do you owe yourself that you came here on a soul level to feel and receive? What do you owe deep in your roots to you?
Like a full surrender.
Yeah. And so can we clear any way in which you haven't quite fully allowed yourself to trust yourself? To just trust that you've got this, that there is a way, that if you keep your pulse on the connection to you, to I, then you will, based on your whole life's already formula, really, that you're creating, you will. And is there any good, valuable reason anymore not to trust yourself that there is a new way to do this? To relate to this issue, the energy, to be in yourself differently around it, to show up in yourself in your work, to honor your ancestors, to become the future and what you pass into the DNA of others.
It feels like an opening. I think I'm just also aware that I still feel underground. So I'm just wanting to name that. Feels like, yes, there's an opening. Yes, there's yes to the things you just stated, and like I'm still underground, so I don't want to ignore that.
Yeah.
Like the sort of the humor and like, and it's still being done in a cave, so and maybe that's okay, but
are you willing to be underground when it's required?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like if anything, I feel like this is a place I have access to, which is a good, like this, I can count that as like good, like, yes, you have access to underground, you have access to this. I am, I will, I have, I've done, I'm like, there is a feeling of some completion, almost like being under the ground, being done with life, like underground feeling. But there's also like, I feel so alive in this place. I think my question that's like coming from down here is like, can you still hear me from down here? Because if this is where I'm doing some of this work, is it actually getting above ground? Like, that's the feeling. That's like, am I getting above ground here? Like, does it matter? Yeah. Do I need to get above ground? Like, I just want to make sure that it's okay that I'm here underground, swaying, saying I owe, saying I have, saying I've done, saying I will. Like, so there's a conundrum that's happening.
I can feel that, and it's like these beautiful seeds that are planted that can't quite see the air yet, that like, will I grow or will I stay?
Yeah,
there still is there, and that still feels like the kind of which is like what it feels when I'm listening to you now is the birthing of almost like your next incarnation of you, which is like, oh, Kellie, have you completed some contract that is so huge that actually what we're sitting on is the beginning of the birthing of now what it looks to live like without that loyalty in place, like the loyalty will always be there on some level, but without like holding back these parts of yourself that are in here waiting to be unearthed, right? And does it feel true to you? Are you birthing into the next evolution of your consciousness of you?
It's funny. I'm like, I think so. I think, I feel like I've been in that state for so long.
Right.
I feel like I've been in perhaps that in between liminal place of, I'm birthing the new and have been for like, this has been a very long, I wouldn't even say gestation. I would say it's been a very long birth. Or
I have this like whole framework around beings. It feels like a lot to get into right this second, but it just feels like, from my perspective, we can complete a whole being of who we are, and it isn't like a changing of our souls. It's like, the being, especially in this, this life where we can aim to want to live till 100. We have so many. It's like maybe many, 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 many eons ago we would die at 30, right? And it's like, I think what's happening is the way consciousness is evolving on this planet, and the possibilities are that if we're living longer, that we do complete whole karmic missions, like they finish, and then we set the stage for the next one. And that's part of the soul's incarnation to begin with. Like, we know that's happening. And so that thing you're talking about, like, this has been going on a long time. Well, for some of us, it's been going on since we were born. And for some of us, it's like, over the last 10 years, I felt that happen. And I haven't been able to quite figure out how to make the full transition, but I know that that's there. And I've been feeding it and nourishing it and not knowing what it meant, and I'm hearing some of that in you where, maybe, and I'd be happy to do another session on this. And maybe we're going to look at, whether or not this is the time that you're really completing a whole karmic storyline that is ready to dissolve, so that you actually can take that and, with its roots in place, form your next journey, here, and what evolves into who you're becoming. And that would make sense just in terms of how much information I was feeling under the surface for you to be you. I'm like, there's so much more here on how to do this. How to do this, like not necessarily do the work you're doing, but how to manifest. Look, I don't even know. I don't always say that word manifest, but how to create a life that's full on all the levels, and that where you really are in all of your life, the facets of the work and the business and the community. And, there's something here in terms of what's evolving. And I can gift you these 3 teleclasses I did on beings, if that would be helpful, just to orient the information. But I'm wondering if we just sit with that and let you, ponder. It's like, there's no rush, right? Like, what if I were birthing a new being? What if this karmic mission really is complete and the oath is over? And I really am I'm finally sitting on these very curated, cultured, cared for seeds of my next evolution. And it really is time to ask how to bring those roots up through the earth and breathe them into my life to bring more dynamic aspects of who I am. Not that the other aspects weren't dynamic, but different ones, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how that all sits.
I mean, I'm looking at the time. I'm like, so you want to do a being change in the last month of our time together?
I don't. Yeah, let's just do it. I kind of do, but I don't. But I think this could be a real being change moment this year. And I would say at this juncture, we often have a really nice chunk of time to really be talking about what that ceremony is for you, what that looks like, how you evolve and take all the steps needed. And what we did today feels like a perfect segue. And I think we schedule some more time or you with Chloë too, to really talk and think about what might be here for you that resonates, what doesn't. As you know, that delete button is here. You can throw it all out and find something else that resonates. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel you.
Yeah. No, I feel felt. I feel felt by you. And it makes sense, like based on how it feels and being in a long birth process. I'm like, okay, it wouldn't be my first being change.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just so many people doing this right now. Like, I feel like over the last 10 years, I've been watching people complete kind of early karma and even some of the secondary karma that we take on so that we can grow. And then they're at this juncture where it's like, we do need more of ourselves in order to meet this earth. There's a lot going on here. And maybe there always is, but I do feel like it requires, especially for the helpers and the healers, like a real questioning of all the structures we live in to see how we can do this differently and how the world can take care of, how we can take care of each other in this world differently to show up and progress, to touch more people, right? There's a lot here. So I think that it would make sense to me that we're arcing towards the completion and therefore the beginning of who you are related to your work.
Yeah.
Coming back that you started this related to how you do your work and how you create the structures that actually allow your work to be seen and felt and wanted. Right? What structures you're going to live in that allow you to be, to thrive and meet and reach more people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering about the being change energy and the past for you being the evolutions you've done being about you personally, and this is so much about you and how, not that doesn't affect how we work because we know it does, but this is so much of the work being is evolving, this the consciousness of how you're going to create your whole life work through.
Yeah. I mean, even just giving it time and space, like there's a way in which, the part of me that is underground and chanting and like, will I grow? Will I be birthed? It feels very much like, oh yeah, like the energy upward feels present, and like my eyes feel more inclined to be open right now, where before they felt more inclined to be closed. So like just giving this voice, giving this space, giving this time, attention, and love, like all feels like very good and energizing. So just even being able to sort of be summative about the experience and be like, okay, like this is where this is leaving me right now, which is just, it's an inspired place.
Good. Good. And I'm hearing the IO, like playing in that, chanting in the, like, what if that IO really is the question? What do I owe myself now as an experience for myself and earth? Like, what am I gifting to myself? What's that vibration that I'm harnessing underneath to help the birthing process into showing up for myself differently, right? Trusting myself differently, pushing through those edges of all that old energy around business and structure. And so good.
Yes, please.
Wow.
Yes,
thank you. Let's take a minute on all that, and then we'll begin to close up. And as I said, I'm happy to keep my pulse on this with you and support you in any way you need.
Thank you.
And let's activate that the divine essence of you is speaking, that your soul is in every cell and particle of you, and that whatever evolutions, whatever we decide to call them or not call them or name them or not, that they are happening. You're asking for it. And that the receiving of more of you and more parts of you and more dynamic aspects of you is a natural part of your receiving. And that any and all that we're doing here is just to clear the way of the habits or the constructs or the gunk that might block us from trusting our growth, trusting our even recoil from present time, trusting our recoil from things, that it's sometimes a wind up towards a different change, and activating that essence in you and bringing it through the center of you and all of you and every bit of you in all time, spaces, dimensions, and universes. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for journeying with me. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for journeying with me.
Oh, my heart. It's just so full after experiencing that session with Kellie. Thank you, dear Kellie, for your you-ness, for your potent, your magical essence of you, and for showing up so fully in your vulnerability and transparency in that session. I'm literally still in full body shivers just thinking about it. This whole session felt like a deep unearthing discovery session where you really didn't know where it was going to go next. From the powerful ancestral grapplings to the humming of vowel sounds, it was such a adventure. It just felt like healing was happening over and over in this tumbling, beautiful expression and experience. Before I dive into today's topic, I wanted to just mention what Kellie and Gabrielli touched on at the end when they were talking about how growth cycles happen and that we can go through big moments of evolution in our lives. You know, Gabrielli was saying that for some of us, these moments of evolution are immense, and we can even complete like whole big learnings and lessons and karmic trajectories in our lives, and are actually really ready to birth into what's next on our soul's journey. You may have heard them even mention the term called being change, which is definitely too much for me to get into in this time that I have here with you today. But if you're curious to learn more about the concept and more about beings and bodies and all of that, Gabrielli offered a 3-part teleclass on it a few years back. And we're happy to gift that to you if you're wanting to listen for free. So to sign up for those recordings, you can go to lachiaramethod.com/beings, and I'll make sure that that link also gets in the show notes for you. So without further ado, let's get into the deeper parts of this session that I want to speak about. This session was such a tremendous example of what we call the discovery process. And that's what I wanted to speak a bit about here today. You could feel the juiciness of the emergent discovery process they were in together, right? Like I could feel it in the session, that deep listening, the way in which Gabrielli was asking completely nonsensical questions with true curiosity and no attachments to the answers. And when I say that, I actually really mean it. Like I've known her for 12 years and literally she's like one of the most genuinely curious people. Like I don't even understand somehow how she can talk to freaking anyone. It doesn't matter what they've done or what they've gone through or experienced or anything that, you know, at times like I may have been so judgmental, and she really gets in there with genuine curiosity, no agenda, no like aiming for an answer, and is just in the discovery of what unfolds with people. It's been incredible to witness and watch, and I'm so excited that you all are getting to experience this as well. So we really use this discovery process in our work to uncover deeper layers of awareness and consciousness. What we have come to know is that curiosity is incredibly powerful. And we have found that over the years, with the right questions, they can really create a space of immense possibility to uncover new awarenesses, and for those awarenesses to come forward from like the depths of our unconscious and really come into our consciousness so we can work with what arises. And usually the questions we ask like make no logical sense at all. And that's the point. It helps to get beyond the sensical, logical mind that wants to know the answers, jump right in and get it right. And it can be, you know, that kind of part of the mind can be more conditioned and rigid and actually even derail us from the healing in many instances. And so we really want to go in and ask those totally illogical questions because they get beyond that thinking mind, and awareness can just naturally arise. So, you see it happening over and over in this session with Kellie, like the unexpected gems of awareness and insight and perspective that came from those illogical questions. It was freaking magical. So really, like curiosity, just to say, also helps us like access more parts of our brain. It like brings more parts of our brain online. And, a lot of times when we're in a stress or trauma response, lots of parts of the brain can actually shut down. And that can be, super challenging when you're trying to move things and heal things. And when we just shut down and it's just like very black and white, either or, right, wrong, good, bad, judgmental brain, in for the kill there, it can really get in the way of us actually, getting underneath at some of the nuggets under there that can really help us heal our trauma and help us actually start to see what's going on underneath some of these responses. And just as a bonus, it literally also helps with memory and clearer cognition. And even Peter Levine and his book called In an Unspoken Voice, Peter Levine is a trauma researcher and expert. He speaks about how playful curiosity can be one of the most effective antidotes to trauma. Isn't that freaking cool? I love that. So all this to say, curiosity is quite the effective tool when it comes to healing. And because of this, curiosity really is one of the most foundational aspects of our work with others and ourselves even. In fact, I literally, some of my most hardest, most gut-wrenching moments in my life, I've used questions to get me through. Actually, seriously. I remember the days and weeks after my divorce when I moved out into this little apartment of my own after being with my husband and my 2 stepchildren day in and day out for 7 years. I was in such shock and such grief and such despair, all while also feeling pretty liberated and excited to see what was going to happen next. But even with that glimmer of hope and excitement, I had some pretty dark times. And I would have moments of looping in freaking awful places in myself, whether that was like looping on the all too familiar, just like self-hate loop, or some serious self-righteousness and anger on repeat in myself. I knew I needed something to help bring me back into myself and more into like a more grounded, present space that was literally like just more in line with reality, because I could get pretty distorted in those times. And, you know, sometimes we can all go down into the nightmarish doomsday spiral and need a little help to get out. And what I've found is that really questions are one of the most effective and amazing tools that I've found to get me out of those spirals. So during that time, I chose literally one question, and I asked it hundreds of times a day. When I was walking the dog, I had the question running in the background. When I was brushing my teeth, the question was there. When I was laying in bed feeling an emptiness and loneliness that felt like it had the potential to freaking end me, I would ask that question over and over, and it was so helpful. It helped give me basically my brain a new job. My looping mind just wanted to keep going, and that's all it knew how to do, what to do. And it really just gave it a new job. Instead of me trashing myself or anyone else, it began to shift that addictive tendency to loop and spiral my way to oblivion into places of deep healing and new awareness. And things began to like really rewire, and I stopped looping and freaking out as much. It really helped me to calm down and reset even in the worst moments. It really isn't to say that it wasn't hard as hell. And at times I just needed to spiral for whatever reason. But it did help me immensely. And it reminded me that there were other parts of me that I could access on top of the hurt, scared, lonely, mopey parts that were taking up most of the airtime. And just to say, I was super skeptical when Gabrielli first introduced me to the concept of asking like a question over and over to myself. I was kind of like, really? That's not going to work. But I was pretty desperate when I met her. And as I tried it, there was no doubt that the questions were really helping me. And I've seen it help happen with others. So just definitely urging you to try it if you want. Speaking of trying it, if you want to try it with me right now, let's do it. Let's just play for a moment. I'm going to ask you a question. And as I do, I just invite you to get not too stuck on the words and trying to logically figure out an answer, but really letting the words just wash over you and seeing what arises as you sit with the question. You may have words, memories, sensations, colors, anything come to you. Really anything goes. And then I will use our short activation to clear the energy, which can create even more space for you to go even deeper. So let's try it. So I'm going to use the question from Kellie's session. Who, what, when, how, where did you decide it is unsafe to be you in the world? And just allowing for whatever naturally arises here. And if nothing does, that's okay too. As she said in the session, it's actually a sign we're getting somewhere. And activate change and generate healing immediately. And who, what, when, how, where did you decide it is unsafe to be you in the world? And activate change and generate healing immediately. And one last time. Who, what, when, how, where did you decide it is unsafe to be you in the world? Activate change and generate healing immediately. And there you have it. You just went through your own little mini discovery session. And if you enjoyed that practice or what I've been sharing about curiosity and your interest is piqued, we also, just to say, have on our website, you can sign up for an 8-day mini course where it's all about these questions and really digging in and feeling into what's possible as we sit with curiosity in our lives. And that link is in the podcast description below. With that, thanks so much for being with us on this episode of the Activate Change podcast. And I really can't wait to be back with you next week. Saying a huge thank you to Ali Halpert, who's the amazing musician who wrote the songs that you hear in this podcast. We have had the privilege to be able to sing some of Ali's songs in our retreats and workshops, and they've been really powerful additions to our work with people. You can hear more of Ali's music and check out more about Ali on Ali's website, AliHalpert.com. That's AlyHalpert.com.